Patience is the secret to good food. A relationship with food is like a relationship with anything else. It takes time, the right attitude, and lots of patience. Our relationship with food goes deeper than just fueling our bodies. Unlike animals that feed solely for survival, humans eat for a variety of reasons, such as joy, pleasure, culture, tradition, and of course, socialization. When you appreciate food as more than just a fuel source, you can begin to see its value and our relationship to it. Brad will light the chalice here in the sanctuary, and I invite you to light your own chalice and place it where it can be seen by all of us if you are able. At times, our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lit the flame within us and the community. Before we sing the first hymn, let me remind our remote participants to leave yourselves muted. However, we want you and whoever is with you to sing with Mary as big and as loud as you can. Make it a joyous experience. So let us all sing the opening hymn, I Walk the Unfrequented Road, hymn number 53.
I walk the unfrequented road with open eye and ear. I watch afield the farmer load the bounty of the year. I filch the fruit of no one's toil, no trespasser am I, and yet I reap from every soil and from the boundless sky. I gather where I did not sow and bind the mystic sheaf, the amber ere the rivers flow, the rustle of the leaf. A beauty springtime never knew haunts all the quiet ways, and sweeter shines the landscape through its veil of autumn haze. I face the hills, the streams, the wood, and feel with all akin. My heart expands their fortitude, and peace and joy flow in.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist community of Cambria. We are glad you have joined us this morning. We acknowledge that the UUCC sanctuary stands on land that may have originally been occupied by the coastal Chumash indigenous peoples, whose ancestors lived primarily in San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara, and Ventura counties. As a Unitarian Universalist community, we celebrate religious diversity and welcome all who journey in search of faith and spirituality. The UUCC is a lay-led congregation, inviting speakers from different religious traditions and spiritual or scientific backgrounds to speak at our pulpit. We encourage presentations covering a variety of topics and areas of interest to our community that connect with the UU7 principles. Today's service centers around the sixth principle. We affirm and promote the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. As naive or impossible as the sixth principle may seem, we should not give up on it. In the face of our culture's apathy and fear, we should imagine and help to create a powerful vision of peace by peaceful means, liberty by liberatory means, and justice by just means. We should believe and live as we believe that a world community of peace, liberty, and justice for all is possible. There is no guarantee that we will succeed, but we will improve ourselves and improve the world by trying. My name is Joel Kane, and I am your worship associate today. I would like to extend a special welcome to today's guests and visitors. We're glad you have joined us this morning. If you are not on our mailing list, please visit our website at uuccambria.org so that we can keep you informed of our activities. And please check out What's Happening, a weekly email blast sent to all our members and friends, which is a great way to keep up with the latest in our community. And remember, if you wish to see this or any past used Zoom service again, recordings of those services can be found at the UUCC website and Facebook as well. The membership committee invites non-members to consider joining our community. Please contact Diane DeMarco or a member of the board if you are interested. Thank you. So again, good morning and welcome to everyone. The affirmation is both a recognition of the nature of our community as well as a promise we make and aspire to. So let us now recite the affirmation. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, and to help one another. We set aside this time for any short announcements that may be of interest to our UUC community members. Please keep your items short and to the point. For those items that need more information, more explanation, please call or email the speaker after the service to be respectful of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, please raise your hand. When your name is called, please stand or unmute yourself and then speak. So we have some announcements from the sanctuary. Treva, you want to go first?
Yeah. Okay, hopefully you can hear me. Where's the? Oh, hi. I'm here in the sanctuary. I know I'm kind of a little figure. Anyways, the board would like to announce that it has welcomed Janet Cooper on as the interim treasurer through the end of the year. So we will be able to continue the work of the church. Yay! Welcome, Janet. Thank you.
Andy, do you have one?
No, I'm good.
Anyone else in the sanctuary? So then we'll go to the Zoom participants.
Yes, I see several hands, starting with Diane.
Okay. I am looking for my slide. It's coming, I think. Is that right, Randy? We have a slide first?
We're working on your slide. Just
There
a
it
minute.
is. Okay, that was worth the wait. Rock and roll auction. That's definitely clear. It's a rock and roll auction. Baby, we need your bidding. Got to have all your bidding. So I see gifted cards, some flowers too. I see them bloom for me or for you. And I think to myself, you auction world. I see pizza pies, clothing too. The bright auction day for me and for you. And I'd say to myself, the fundraiser in our little world. The colors of painting so pretty on your walls. We also have neat gift cards. Make sure your hand is called. I see friends nodding heads, saying that wine's from Lou. They're really saying that wine's from Lou. I see $40 gift cards from the place, and for a glassware designed with grace. And Rebecca's scarves are being unfurled. And I think to myself, Saturday at 4 o'clock in the Zoomland UUCC world. Hope to see you all there. It's coming soon. Take care and thank you.
Thank you, Diane. That was amazing. Robert and Nancy have their hands up.
Good morning, everybody. Diane, that was fabulous. I am announcing that the Move Towards Racial Justice group will be meeting on Zoom this coming Wednesday, October the 13th at 7 p.m. We're working our way through the book, Me and White Supremacy by Layla Said. And info can be gotten from my lovely wife, Nancy Tholen, and she can give you the Zoom link and more info about the book, and you can find her contact information in the newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And back to you, Joel.
Hansen will be with us all the way from Denmark, making her the furthest remote speaker in our UUCC Zoom service history. She and her singing ensemble, Eve, will be presenting A Deluge of Angels. Sharing together some of our personal and significant joys and concerns brings us closer as a faith community. We invite you to share the milestones that are deeply felt as part of your personal life. But please be mindful of and considerate of all who come to worship this morning. This is a time of community building. Speaking of gardens, today's sermon is entitled Bringing in the Harvest, to be delivered by our own Brad Seek. Brad is a longtime resident of the rural agricultural community of San Luis Obispo County. He has shared a variety of topics at this pulpit of interest to him and his audience. Brad received a Bachelor of Science degree in zoology, worked in the field of environmental health, and continues to enjoy retirement living in Cambria. Brad, I turn it over to you.
Good morning. Thanks for yet another opportunity to share some thoughts with you. This time to talk about a subject that is near and dear to our hearts and even closer to our stomachs. It's about the food we consume to nourish our bodies. Each of us represents the final destination of a dynamic and reliable system of production and distribution. When we visit our favorite grocery store, we are given a glossary of opportunities to celebrate the harvest. Then we can bring it all home to create our own special magic in the kitchen. There was an expression used in Europe in the aftermath of World War II: to live good is to eat good. This phrase became a mantra of sorts as I navigated through these uncertain times. It has been a constant reassurance that things will get better and eventually return to normal. Anthony Bourdain once said, "Food is everything we are." It's an extension of nationalistic feeling, ethnic feeling, our personal history, our province, our religion, our tribe, our grandma. Food is inseparable from all these things. A special drink or dish can remind us of those cherished moments, and it was all made possible by a supply chain that remains unbroken. That supply that we are so dependent on was provided by an essential workforce who did not have the luxury of staying at home. Field workers like Victor Manuel Cervantes, Hector Chavez, and Jose Zacarias. This is what some of them had to say. The challenge I had was coming to work every day, not knowing whether I could be the next person infected. Spirit of our times. People are realizing that we never stop working and that we are responsible for bringing food to their tables. I would like to share that I am proud of working in agriculture. I feel proud of going to the grocery store and seeing the crops that I help harvest daily. In 2020, San Luis Obispo County harvested almost $1 billion worth of products. Some of the top crops produced were strawberries, wine grapes, avocados, cattle, vegetable transplants, broccoli, head lettuce, and lemons. This is not an isolated event, as you might suspect. Our adjacent neighbors produce even more. Santa Barbara produced 1.8 billion, Monterey 3.8 billion, and Kern County 7.5 billion. Some of the counties in the San Joaquin Valley lead the nation in production value. This kind of action is going on nationwide and worldwide because, as you know, we need to eat. That corny bumper sticker slogan that was so popular in the 70s still holds true today. Farming is everybody's bread and butter. Agriculture has been one of the key inventions in human evolution. Without it, we would still be living in the rough. Where and when did it all begin? Most of the evidence points to the Middle East around 11,000 years ago and spreading throughout the world thereafter. But two important discoveries have given experts pause to reconsider. The first is a 23,000-year-old site located on the southern shores of the Sea of Galilee called Ohalo II. And the other is a 12,000-year-old ceremonial center called Göbekli Tepe in southern Turkey. Ohalo II provided a wealth of information about the way people lived in this area. The sedentary campsite burned down mysteriously. Then it was deluged with water and sand and quickly covered by a rising lake level. It remained entombed until 1989 when it was discovered after lake levels had dropped. Ohalo II has preserved a wide range of plant material along with organic traces of shelters in which people lived. Even though conditions must have been cold and arid in the broader landscape, Ohalo was a refuge of abundant land and water resources. Plant remains indicate spring and fall harvests. Hunting of local and migratory animals and fishing occurred all year long. This suggests that year-round use of the site would have been possible, even at a time when glaciers were at a maximum. The early humans gathered over 140 species of plants. These included 13 known invasive weeds mixed with the edible cereals such as wheat, barley, and oats. The presence of weed seeds under these conditions is widely considered an indicator of trial cultivation. By the way, I'm familiar with 4 of those weeds growing in San Luis Obispo County under similar circumstances. Researchers found a grinding slab where the cereal starch granules were extracted and processed for consumption. There were sickle blades showing evidence that they were being used to harvest cereal plants. In a designated refuse dump, there was remnants of, get this, birds, fish, almonds, olives, figs, grapes, vegetables, peas, lentils, cereal grains, and large animals. The new study offers evidence that early humans clearly functioned with a basic knowledge of agriculture and exhibit foresight in agricultural planning earlier than previously believed. Plant ecologist Marcello Sternberg stated, "Those early ancestors were far more skilled than we knew." These people did more than dig a few tubers, pluck berries, hunt a few game, forage for greens in random fashion, never staying long enough to leave a lasting imprint. They probably harvested plant and animal products at carefully worked out frequencies and intensities. They practiced an array of horticultural techniques through pruning, sowing, weeding, burning, digging, thinning, and selective harvesting. They would encourage desired characteristics of individual plants, increase populations of useful plants, and alter the structures and compositions of plant communities. Perhaps agriculture wasn't so much of a eureka moment, but something you could do when given the opportunity to make things a little better. If you had the luxury of staying in one area year-round, you could act on simple observations and make a big difference. One of those observations was made with a wild cereal grain called einkorn wheat. It was normally cut and gathered before maturity. Then the seeds were roasted over the fire. The preferred way would have been for the berry to fully ripen. But if they waited that long, the seed would have fallen to the ground as nature intended. In the wild varieties, there is a fusing ridge of cells between the seed and the stalk that breaks down as the plant dries out. The wheat was preparing to sow itself and was not all that interested in harvesting logistics. But sometime in that distant past, someone discovered a dry plant with all of the berries still attached to the stalk. It was one of those simple mutations when the ridge did not break down and the seeds remained. Over time, the process of roasting would have been replaced by threshing. This particular mutation not only was not all that beneficial to the species, but it was a godsend to humanity. The berries were more nutritious, more abundant. They could be stored for a long time. They could be processed to make different things. And this new variety produced viable seeds that could be planted year after year. Give us this day our daily bread and beer. Now that's something to celebrate and be thankful for. After Ohalo, glaciers began to recede and the climate warmed. Alluvial rivers ran year-round, creeks swelled, and springs emerged along the alluvial foothills. There would have been lots of places for the hunters and proto-farmers to apply and improve their skills in the century and millennia to come. In 1994, Dr. Klaus Schmidt and his team of archaeologists began to excavate the oldest known ceremonial center in the world, Göbekli Tepe. This meticulous, artistically designed circular structure are a mystery, but I think our tenders of the wild could now add a few more specialties to their labels. Architects, engineers, planners, artisans, builders, cooks, and healers. It required hundreds of workers that needed to be fed and cared for. Food was abundant and was brought to the site daily from a reliable supply chain. Large stone beer vats and thousands of grinding tools were found on the site, along with the butchered bones of wild animals. There appeared to be an organization of large work feasts for the construction project that continued for hundreds of years. Experts believe that when one circular structure was completed, it was carefully filled in and another was started. In this extended time frame, the first cities of Damascus and Jericho were also under construction. And, well, you know the rest of the story. You've read the periodicals and watched the documentaries. Certain animals and plants emerged into domestication through careful observation and selection, not just in the Middle East, but all over the world to produce food surpluses. It gave people time to build places like Göbekli Tepe, cities, power centers, extensive irrigation canals, and more. Our early ancestors learned that they could tilt the process of natural selection in their favor through trial and error. Now let's fast forward to 1856 AD. There was a gifted Augustinian friar by the name of Gregor Mendel, who was educated and became well-versed in the sciences and applied mathematics. He began crossing pea plants over a period of 7 years in different ways and then studied the results. He not only learned something new about these humble vegetables, but he gained some insight into the nature of life itself. When he crossed a wrinkled pea plant to a round pea plant, he discovered that the round dominates, which he called dominant. The wrinkled would be more deferential, which he called recessive. He also discovered that each parent carries not one, but a pair of characteristics, which could be one of the following: capital double R, homozygous dominant, round peas; large R, small r, heterozygous dominant, round peas; two small r's, homozygous recessive, wrinkled peas. When he crossed two parents, there were 6 different possible combinations in this model. If both parents carried the capital double R dominant round, then the offspring would always be capital R dominant round. If he crossed 2 recessive wrinkled parents, then the offspring would always be recessive wrinkled. Crossing heterozygous dominant got a little bit more interesting. When he counted up all the offspring in all the possible combinations, he discovered that the round peas consistently dominated by a ratio of 3-to-1. So let's say a hypothetical farmer approached Mendel and asked him, "How can I avoid growing these starchy round peas and produce only the sweeter wrinkled peas?" Mendel would say, as you now would say, "Open up your seed sacks, separate the rounds from the wrinkled, then plant only the wrinkled ones from now on." "Is that all?" replied the farmer. "Yes, that's all," replied the friar. By adding some basic principles of heredity to plant and animal breeding, you could achieve a desired result much sooner. The church rewarded Mendel's efforts by promoting him to the administrative position of abbot, and he never again had time to do any more research. Go figure. To add insult to injury, Mendel's work went largely ignored for over 35 years until it was rediscovered in the early 1900s. He was then posthumously awarded the title the Father of Genetics. His techniques is still being used today. The concept of Mendelian inheritance was applied in agricultural research, and it led to the Green Revolution. In 1944, geneticist and plant pathologist Norman Borlaug took up a research position with the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center in Mexico. He worked with a research team to develop semi-dwarf, high-yield, disease-resistant wheat varieties for 16 years. By 1963, 95% of Mexico's wheat crop used semi-dwarf varieties developed by Borlaug. That year, the harvest was 6 times larger than it was in 1944. Mexico became fully self-sufficient in wheat production and a net exporter. In 1967, India, Pakistan, and Turkey imported some of those. In fact, they imported 80,000 tons of these wheat seeds from Mexico. By 1968, crop yields were so high, it led to a shortage in various things such as the labor to harvest the crops, bullock carts to haul the wheat to the threshing floor, jute bags, trucks, rail cars, and grain storage facilities. Yields in Pakistan nearly doubled between 1965 and 1970, and tripled from 1970 to 2000. Even higher yields were obtained in India. Borlaug's varieties was credited with saving over 1 billion lives, and for this he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. Similar stories have unfolded in the production of rice, corn, and soybeans that benefited countries all over the world. These high-yielding seed varieties have been transformative, but they are intensely dependent on capital inputs, adoption of scientific farming methods, the use of chemical fertilizers and pesticides, consolidation of land holdings, and the need for large, expensive equipment. As you can imagine, the Green Revolution does not come without its problems, of which there are quite a few. Its greatest achievement has been to significantly reduce the percentages of extreme poverty. Anthony Bourdain once said, "Food may not be the answer to world peace, but it's a damn good start." The idea of providing large quantities of quality food to most of us through innovation is something humanity has been pretty good at. But there's always room for improvement. Right now, there's never been a greater rivalry between the camp that supports organically grown foods and the camp that supports traditional methods of the Green Revolution, which includes the most recent genetically modified organisms, or GMOs for short. The first GMO was introduced in 1995, and today over 26 species have been approved in at least one country. Organisms have been modified through gene editing, which is the same way we now treat patients with sickle cell disease. The desired traits in plants include greater drought tolerance, resistance to viruses, fungi, and insects, resistance to herbicides, delayed browning and softening, increased nutrients, and reduced nicotine in tobacco. The majority of corn, cotton, and soybeans are now GMOs. Producers of GMOs have reported higher yields at lower cost, which might include a reduction in pesticide use. Most GMO crops are being used for animal feed. Processed GMOs that we might consume are sugar from sugar beets, corn syrup, corn starch, vegetable oils from the seeds of soybeans, corn, canola, and cotton. GMO foods available for direct consumption that we know of are papayas and squash. The USDA will require producers to label GMOs in their consumer items by 2022. Processed GMOs such as vegetable oils will be exempt, but will have to be tested for contaminants. Well, as you might expect, many consumers have been very skeptical about GMOs, and that might explain why the demand for organically grown food in the US has tripled in the last 20 years. The expansion of organic farming is occurring worldwide, including developing countries. All the major food producers now have an organic division. The consumer perception that organic food is healthier is not without merit. Nutrient content levels vary from farmer to farmer and from year to year, but multiple studies have shown that organic varieties do provide higher levels of vitamin C, iron, manganese or magnesium, phosphorus, antioxidants, and lower to no levels of pesticide residues. Organic farmers are prohibited from using most conventional pesticides, any chemical fertilizers, and any GMO seeds. Their goal is to improve the health of the soil by adding manures, compost, and other amendments. This can increase more biodiversity below the ground, improve soil absorption, retention, and reserve a high level of plant nutrients. A friend of mine once said organic food is simply what our grandparents used to eat. In the 1970s, I got acquainted with a 100-year-old farmer who had homesteaded some land in the Arroyo Grande Valley. He and his sons were describing some of the amazing crop yields they got from a parcel of virgin land along the Arroyo Grande Creek. Organic farmers, I believe, have the potential to share that same experience if they continue to fortify their fields. One last thought on GMOs. They do have the potential to improve the quality of our foods. One promising example is with a variety they call golden rice. It supplies enough beta-carotene to the diet of a third world child to avoid vitamin A deficient blindness, which is a huge problem in the third world. It was approved in the Philippines just a couple of months ago, and planting could get started as early as next year. I'll leave it there. An agricultural industry in this county that adds value to both the organic and conventional growers alike comes from the vegetable transplant nurseries. Using transplants for home gardening is nothing new, but providing vegetable plugs for commercial farmers was practically non-existent 40 years ago. Today, it is the 5th largest product value in our county, thanks to some innovative growing methods. This service not only reduces labor, seed, and pesticide use costs, but allows the farmer to grow and harvest in less time. Greenheart Farms is one of those transplant nurseries. It was co-founded by entrepreneur Hoy Buell in 1979 and is located on the Arroyo Grande Mesa. He was a Cal Poly graduate in ornamental horticulture. In his own words, "I anticipated a need for root vegetable transplants almost before the farmers did." He didn't invent the transplant business, but improved it by providing better product and service. Another entrepreneur, Shar Karzemi, purchased Monterey mushrooms in Watsonville in 1988, starting with one growing farm. He eventually expanded to 10 farms across the country. I became familiar with one of his farms in Arroyo Grande while I was working for the health department. This farm produced its own growing compost, starting with truckload after truckload after truckload of straw bales. As I walked along the center aisle in one of the many dimly lit growing houses, I could see spawn boxes producing mushrooms in different stages on the left and on the right, 4 layers high. Workers seemed to be constantly harvesting mushrooms high and low and bringing them to the packing room. Mushrooms were placed in boxes and shipped to the grocery stores all over the Tri-Counties on a daily basis. Karzemi's business currently produces 250 million pounds of mushrooms annually from his farms. Today, many kinds of commercial edible mushrooms are not only being used for gourmet dishes, but they are also valued for medicinal purposes. Even wild mushrooms or fungi are being recognized more and more as a vital component to the health of both the natural and agricultural environments. As our civilization continues to encroach on agricultural land in the future, humanity will have to come up with ever more creative ways to produce food for a growing population. One of the more promising methods in an urban setting is to grow vertically with tower gardens. Tower gardens can be installed indoors with artificial light or outdoors in the sunlight. They are especially suited for rooftops or in greenhouse environments. Scissortail Farms of Tulsa, Oklahoma, grows fresh greens year-round in hothouses for the local market. It grows its vegetables and herbs aeroponically, without soil, in nutrient-rich water. The crops are produced sooner and use 90% less water than the conventional growing. About 800 cases of leafy greens are harvested each week in a half an acre space. The tower garden can easily be scaled up or down, depending on the who, where, when, what, and why. Existing rooftops are especially adaptable because there's lots of sunny available space for nearby restaurants, grocery stores, schools, hospitals, etc., etc. The food can easily be picked and eaten fresh on the same day. Rooftop farming can be done using soil so long as the building can support the extra weight. I love that photo. One shining example of the possibilities is located in Bangkok at the Thammasat University Rooftop Farm. Over 40 different edible species are grown, including rice, indigenous vegetables, herbs, and fruit trees on this multi-use space. Over 80,000 organic meals are produced each year. The solar panels on the top produce 500,000 watts per hour to irrigate the crops and power the building below. 3 million gallons of irrigation water can be stored outside in retention ponds from rainfall. Turf provides a platform to learn and share across various disciplines. Year-round workshops are provided on a sustainable agriculture for the students and surrounding residents to use at home. Wouldn't it be nice to see something like this garnishing our concrete jungles? Well, this looks like a good place to stop. These are some of my thoughts on food, or if you will, food for thought. Perhaps you have some of your own. Thank you for listening. Bon appetit.
Very interesting, Brad. The morning offering will now be given and received. Please keep in mind that our congregation is entirely self-governed by the democratic process. One of the privileges of our free church tradition is to provide all of the financial support for our many ministries and from among ourselves. Generosity, therefore, is one of the spiritual values we recognize as central to our personal and institutional well-being. You are invited to participate in the blessing of giving. For those at home, please use one of the methods shown on your Zoom screen. It was very lovely, Jan. Thank you. Our thanks for all gifts given and received for the work of this community. Let us now sing the doxology.
we give for harvest earned, the thoughts of labor garnered in, but praise we more the soil unturned, from which the yield is yet to win.
Please join us in singing the closing hymn, Heap High the Farmer's Wintry Hoard, hymn number 70.
Heap high the farmer's wintry hoard, heap high the golden corn. No richer gift has autumn poured from out the lavish horn. Through vales of grass and meads of flowers, our plows their furrows made, while on the heels the sun and showers of changeful April played. We dropped the seed o'er hill and plain beneath the sun of May, and frightened from our sprouting grain, the robber crows away. And all through the long bright days of June, its leaves grew green and fair, and waved in hard midsummer's noon its soft and yellow hair. And now with autumn's moonlit eyes, its harvest time has come. We pluck away the frosted leaves and bear the treasure home.
Let us now recite the valediction. We extinguish the flame of this chalice, and we know that the light of truth and love and the warmth of this community go with us until we meet again. Please extinguish your chalice at home now. After the benediction, please click on the Gallery View button in the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom screen, but please remain muted. Andy will call on you when you raise your hand. Brad will give us the benediction.
All of us depend on food, no matter where we live or what we do. What we eat, in what quantity, and how that food is produced can be the difference between life and death. It can maintain our health or ruin it. It can create high-value employment opportunities or force farmers into subsistence. It can help protect our environment by maintaining biodiversity or contribute to its depredation. The diversity of plant and animal food that we enjoy today is directly linked to the thousands of varieties obtained from nature. If we can maintain that diversity, then nature will continue to help us find better ways of bringing in the harvest.